My opinion is that the British government, the colonial people, are partly to blame for much of this feeling of difference.
We are in the majority when you look at the population of Sierra
Yes,
Leone.
yes.
Because of that, me think say we have a huge role to play in the direction where Salon dey go.
The lawlessness line go difficult for come. The standard of education is not satisfactory. Graduates can't even write good English.
Welcome to Honestly Speaking, the podcast where we have honest conversations about the issues shaping our lives. I'm your host, Antonia Howard, and in our last episode, we spoke with historian Joseph Ben Kaifala about the danger of forgetting. Today, we continue that conversation, but this time through lived memory. Our guest has dedicated her life to education and nation building. She began teaching in 1953 after studying English, French, and history at Frabe College. She later completed a diploma in education in the UK, and she went to serve as principal of the Freetown Secondary School for Girls from 1967 to 1987. That's 20 years. Over the course of her career, she has shaped generations of Sierra Leoneans through teaching, mentorship, and leadership. Her service has been recognized at the highest national levels. She's a recipient of the Grand Officer of the Order of the Rochelle, one of Sierra Leone's most distinguished honors, as well as Justice of the Peace. Our guest today is Mrs. Cassandra Garber. Welcome to Honestly Speaking.
Thank you very much. You seem to have done a lot of homework to get all those details about
Yes,
me.
with your help as well. I decided to do a bit of research so that when we have the conversation, I would know which questions to ask, which kind of question then for ask you, and like
That's quite interesting.
yes. So the first question where they ask you now about history, about how you feel for don't be part of waiting we call history. Standing at your own solid memory of Sierra Leone, you've been part of pre-independence and post-independence Sierra Leone. You don't see Salon through so many transitions. How does it feel to be a part of history?
Well, to begin with, I think it's a great blessing from the Almighty that I am alive up to this stage. I will be 98 in 5 weeks' time. And many of my products, as you've already said, I was principal of the FSSD for 20 years. And that, of course, was preceded by a continuous member of staff permanently from 1959. So my products are many.
Many indeed.
And also, I am, well, as you say, I studied history and French. So my propensity for history is so great that people used to say, Mercy, you remember all that? You see, so I have to say that at this time of my life, I can't help, without your asking, it comes as second nature for me to make a comparison with what it was before independence and what we're going through, where I have to adjust to for those of us who lived before independence, not only lived, but were adult enough to be able to assess situations and issues.
So waiting Salon been turn like during independence, the waiting have been the mood during let we say pre-independence.
When you say Sierra Leone, I expect you you're focusing more on
Freetown.
Freetown. Of course, we had connection and we knew about what was happening. As we used to say at that time, it was not provincial town, it was upline. That was the popular expression for the provinces, go upline. Even in the north, when there was no railway, of course, there never was railway to the northern province, but it was to the south and east. But we refer to all of those areas as upline. We never used to think of Termini, Mende, and all that. We just used the general word upline. So I think that made it easy for us to integrate, even among themselves, different tribes. There was not this obvious friction or upline. When I was in the boarding home, and of course we had quite a few pupils, and all we know that during the holidays, you they go upline, me they go na boat the bonds, me they can't take me go. We never ever had this sense of difference in ethnicity. Never.
And now you feel like say that you think say that difference they exist very vividly. You they see and say there's a separation or division now in Sierra Leone.
It is so pronounced. It is so pronounced that even when you don't talk about politics, you sense it. You go to the market, you see how people behave to themselves, and you can tell that there is that feeling of we're not the same, you see, which is a great handicap in dealing for relationship.
So what thing you think say don't cause dandy? What thing you go point to? What thing are some of the reason them where you feel say don't lead to this difference or division?
Now, to begin with, from my own angle as a Creole and living much part of my young adult in the colonial era and studying, following history, not only living history, but reading about history and historical issues, I feel, and to me, my opinion is that the British government, the colonial people, are partly to blame for much of this feeling of difference. They instilled that feeling of difference among the provincial people to say that the people of course, Western area where the Creoles did not look down on them. So that feeling was so, they instilled it, I think, so deeply that it has taken generations for them to get over it. You see, they, in their own interest to get command of the natural resources, diamond, gold, iron ore, and things like that, they knew that with their superior knowledge and the very primitive knowledge of the people in the provinces, they could dominate them and manipulate them. And they felt that, and they knew that with the Creoles who were slightly more aware of the difference, the Creoles were, as we could say, they opened their eye, you see. So that is partly. And even though much has been on the Creole side, we've tried generations to erase that opinion. It still exists. I'm still head of the Creole Descendants Union, although I have handed over the leadership. I am still President Emerita, you see. So, as I said at one interview, there are plenty of evidence, hundreds, that Creoles have adopted. We never knew the word adopt. We used to say, Menam, adopted people from the provinces. I mean, even most of our leaders, the first on the forefront, Shaka Stevens, Mina, most of them were all helped by living with Creoles somehow. In those days, hundreds of years ago, many of the provincial parents were not aware of the value of education. So they were not too keen on sending their children to school, which of course now is the opposite. Everybody realizes the benefit of education. So you see, so it was so, and many of them, when they agreed to take charge of these young children, they would change their name, give them their name, so that they wanted them to feel as part of the family. You see.
Yes.
So this was the approach.
That's very, very interesting. So from the Creole perspective, that waiting the Creole them in they do for embrace people them way come out upline. Nah, something way for make them feel part of the family, make them belong. But plenty people now can look back, say, then they look like erasure of identity. Like where the British been come, where they enslave and people then are Salone, they enslave people then are different parts of Africa, then give a new name. So that way of upbringing, where say the Creole themselves then come when the settlers returned to Freetown and come with their new name, many British names, European names. That way they of living and understanding the world. Nine Creole themselves try for pass on to the people them we in the upline we not being as educated. And as much as the understanding where Creole people then get, say, then try for help, then try for bring people them along, then try for make people feel belong, then they can also create some traumatic experiences.
I mean, I think this is a natural phenomenon. Even with not, this is why you have racism. The white look down on the blacks. Now, even it's only now, of course, with all this intermarriage and whatnot. Even years ago, I mean centuries ago, when you read British history of in Britain and all that problem between British and Irish, it's the same parallel situation. The British looks down on the Irish. So that is, I think, a natural temperament that no matter where you are, you get a feeling. And even within ourselves, the Creoles, even whatever tribe, those who feel they are more advanced tend to have a feeling of superiority. And those who are not as advanced, naturally, even if they sometimes depends on how they approach, they sometimes feel, even when you try to be normal, they feel you know.
So colonialism is a very interesting subject. Now, one of the things that we shape Salon history and beaucoup parts of Africa. Also, the fight for independence is also a very significant part of Sierra Leonean history. I just wonder whose other events they're making. It can still be the pre-independence period or post-independence, or even the fight to get independence. Whose part them of Salon history really shape your own view of Salon? Whose part of history? Whose part of history you can look at saying a transition period where Salon change for the better or for worse?
Well, the transition period, I go say now, as you said, about the first decade, about 10 years from the actual independence, about 10 years later, it seems as if we were adjusting. So there was not that much change, you see, but gradually, gradually, I can't say it's so traumatic. The change happened so quickly, that, and I think that the political approach nine caused this political approach.
What do you mean by the political approach? The style?
The awareness of we are in charge. It's everywhere because something like this happened in Kenya when Kenya became independent. There was a book I've forgotten the Now We Own Town Now. I think that you read that book about Kenya. That's why they themselves had something like a civil war and all that. You see, it happens, but and in our own case, it's become more intense because the caliber or the cadre of people who were in charge were all of the same ethnic group, the Creoles. So it just made it worse for the Creoles that if they were moved out, the other groups came in. And to begin with, when we were independent, it was not so. It was a mixed crowd. You had Sam Milton, of course, who was Mendy. You had Ned John, who was Creole. You had other tribes. First of all, this SLPP, being an historian, and I know SLPP is not a Mende-founded party to say from scratch. No, it was a mix. It was a mixed foundation. You had Baifari Matas was very active, and he's of Cambia. You had Chief Alima Midua. He was, I think, Limba, I don't know. And you had Julius Ziza, not Ziza, Gulama, was Mendy. So it was a mixed bag. It was not a dominant Mendy group. It was a national party.
Right.
You see, that is why we call Sierra Leone's People's Party. That's why they agreed on that name. You see.
So the SLPP is the first.
And for those who know, I don't mind if it annoys some people. Sam Milton was not a total Mendy. His father was a Creole, a man from Kisi village. The present generation, they are not aware of it. And then also Lamina Sanko. Lamina Sanko is a Creole. His name is Nathaniel Eldred Jones. He's my mother's uncle. And the reason why he changed his name to Lamina Sanko when he was studying in England to be a minister, reverend gentleman. He was Nathaniel Jones from the Gambia. But I mean, in those days, in the colonial days, you had the people, the educated Creole people were sent all along the four British territories. So Nathaniel Jones was born in Gambia, but his people were from Gloucester village. And he went to England to study to be a priest, reverend, Anglican church, and understand that for the ordination, the bishop who was supposed to was in charge, who should put his hands on him, the ceremony, refused to put his hands on his head because he was black. So that struck him deeply. And as he left, he changed his name because he was Jones. He changed his name to Lamina Sanko, which he realized was an African name.
Yes.
So people don't know that Lamina Sanko is a Creole by the name of Elder Jones.
You see, this brings us back to the point about renaming someone, the erasure of identity. So if person gets one name, you change your name to something else. Maybe your intention is to make your own intention go be for let the person be part of you, own family, for let the person feel belong.
Yes.
But then you are erasing that person's true identity. Yes, you're erasing the person's identity. But what thing I want to ask you now is from independence now, when Sierra Leoneans took over the leadership of the country, up to, several bokutin and happen. Now we own story, na salon, we own history. One of the most significant thing where we can talk about na the war and how it affects boku people them na the country. Plenty people lost.
So you're referring to our own civil rebel war.
Yes, exactly. It make plenty people left the country. We lost a lot during that time. And I just wonder, waiting at your own recollection, waiting you remember about that period in time, they may be leading up to the war.
No one likes danger. And some people call it rebel war, some people call it civil war. But to me, I think it was more the correct name is a rebel war. It was not a civil assault, because most of those involved in the violence, it was not a mixed group assault. When the advantages, I call it advantages, in the war touched some people, first of all, during violence, whoever is in charge is disrupted the whole awareness of the whole system of obedience and non-obedience disappears. And people who have been feeling disadvantaged, they feel it's an opportunity for them to belong to the advantaged group. So they lose all sense of what is right and what is wrong. And I think that when these rebels attacked different places, and obviously human nature being what it is, even within families, you have conflict. So that people who have had reasons for antagonism, other reasons, seize the opportunity of the absence of law and order to join the side where they feel they can get some benefit. So this is why the war spread. So this is why it's lawlessness, I should call it, is rampant in the country now. You cannot say it's only one ethnic group. It's rampant. And then robbery, which we never knew armed robbery was never known before. Now it's rampant because many people have benefited from getting the experience of handling weapons, which was not so before. Next, first of all, in our own, at my youthful and young adult days, we never used to see the soldiers with guns. I mean, they were soldiers, yes, marching up and down, but never with guns. But obviously, after World War One and Two, and some of our people were exposed to the use of modern weapons, when we had our own rebel war, they had been used to modern weapons. It was an opportunity, and the manufacturers of weapons, they were glad to have sources to sell their weapons. And violence has become an aspect that both sides are aware of. You, in your own simplicity, you are aware that that is wrong. And they, of course, they are aware that it helps them. You see, you see. So life, it has made life very tense and uncertain. Uncertain, you know.
Very true. And I wonder, with your background in teaching and training and mentorship and leadership, I wonder what you think the role of education is in that. What role education plays in nation building?
Education is from the ancient times. It's the be all and end up of peaceful living, of improving yourself, of benefiting from improvement, of seeing the need. That is it, the need. If you are not aware of the need, you will not appreciate it. You see, so education now, I think being an educationist and assessing the standard, this is very painful for me. I can't tell you that I am impressed by what is happening in education now. We are all, if we have to be honest with ourselves, we will say that education, the standard of education, is not satisfactory. It's not, people graduates can't even write good English. First of all, when I was young and up to young adult up to 20 years, we grew up knowing that students who did not even go to attend secondary schools to have secondary education, they went up only up to that called for elementary standard 6, would become civil servants up to the rank of being chief clerk, and they can write good English and whatnot. But now you have people with BA degrees, you see their English, you'll be ashamed. So education, obviously, we have concentrated on technology, but that's not all. The standard, you see.
During your time of teaching, of being principal at FSSG, what values did you emphasize as a leader, as a teacher?
Well, I think respect for the truth, respect for the truth is great. And, well, some people say I was difficult and whatnot, and even now, but I can't help it. Truth is truth. The truth is the truth, my dear. So I can't, just to please or to make somebody like me. No, this is the truth.
So respect for the truth. And do you think that is being emphasized in schools or in society generally today? You feel like
Tony, don't ask me that because I am ashamed to think, to accept. People will tell you, oh, Mrs. Garber, this is what is happening. That even heads of schools, from what we hear and what we know, and it's not all just make up story. We know what is happening at heads of schools. Many, I don't say all, but many, they are not honest. They don't accept the truth. They are not. It is a pity. You see, and in Crow, we say, I think it is in other language, now before foot be and foot they follow. And this, of course, to repeat, mind repeating, is the truth that, and envy has, I call it envy, wanting to be like your neighbor when you don't have the basic equipment for it. And I mean equipment, not physical things you hold, but you don't have probably the education, you don't have the makeup in your natural behavior, but you want to be like Mr. A, who probably through hard work and whatnot, and perhaps in his own younger days, he had went through difficult times and he benefited from his experience. You want to be like him, and you will do anything to be like him. You see, this is wrong in our society. You have to try and do hard work. I mean, benefit is not something you just get like that. It's by your own contribution, you see, and then also perhaps all this obvious fanfare of wealth. This obvious fanfare of wealth has corrupted our country. People want to have, you can't afford the best car, but you want to have. Instead of taking an ordinary car, you want a Mercedes or what. I don't even know the names of the best cars now. But during our younger days, I used to have a Maurice, and I'm satisfied with that so long as it takes me from point A to point B. But because my next door neighbor has a Mercedes, I say, come what may what. Why should she have it and not her? You see? And people will go to mean ways to be able to compete. That's envy. Competition involves a bit of much of envy as well. You know,
yeah.
don't you compete, yes, in a good way, but you don't compete for adverse results.
Yeah. And the schools have a role to play in that. The home also has a role to play. I just wonder if what gives you hope about the future of Sierra Leone? What keeps you optimistic?
Well, I would, if you're asking me, and I don't know how far this program will go, I would take the opportunity to say that the women, although we are all everywhere, they say empowerment of women and all that. Yes, I will say empowerment of mothers. The mothers should have a big opportunity, the greatest opportunity to help mold this country.
What thing you think say can bring we together as Sierra Leoneans? We get in them way, no matter waiting, we can still all man they all in company and say we na salon people them. What are some of those things that bring us together?
I think fortunately, one area we for explore to the highest now sports. Sports. Sports should bring us together because that is as a gift from the Almighty. You become a good footballer, a good this, that. And when it comes to sports, you're not looking at the tribe, you're looking at the skill. I never knew of course, in our own days, it was unheard of to hear women playing football. You see, but now we have football teams, female football teams going to competition and all that. So football, there is a change there. First, as I say, athletics and cricket. Cricket was another very popular sports. It's coming back gradually, but football had actually almost crushed it.
Wetin na some important thing dem wey you think say we for learn from history?
But that's a difficult question. You see,
Thing dem wey go, let I put am this way, thing dem wey go help we not for make the same mistake and we go help we for build a more peaceful and cohesive society.
My dear, the tension has gone so far. I think with not only education but civilization, the period of civilization, great, and the now because of awareness of living and very good improvement in the medical field, people they live longer, and the population, of course. Before, we used to say the population of Sierra Leone was 3 million. Now we don't reach, I don't know if don't reach 7. So the more people we get now, if they're able for, then 7,000, they may live in the ancient times and don't imbibe that long-term habits, even for easier for disseminate all the good habits there. But now, we don't be double with former population, and now the bad habits they don't overwhelm we. So it's going to be a hard task for make we retrieve, go back to what it used. I mean, the peaceful atmosphere we've been doing at the country, seem for the again. I don't know how forget that. Now, God, no more go help we. We don't know how forget that. You see? And the lawlessness. I mean, the lawlessness and go difficult for Cobb.
And that's how I ask you. Waiting have been some important value them where you think say young people they may get. Are they emphasize on young people because young people now the majority.
Exactly. They're in the majority.
We are in the majority when you look at the population of Sierra Leone.
Yes.
And because of that, me think say we get Bokutin for do we have a huge role to play in the direction where Salon they go. And we also have a huge responsibility. We have a huge civic responsibility.
This is why earlier I said, you see, as an educationist, I'm still in education. I think parents should be aware of how they train children. A child should live as a child, not as an adult. You not picking. Certain situations, certain behavior is expected of a child. Don't let that child go up as an adult. So parents should let children realize that certain behavior, certain standards they will get there, but they should not rush to get there. You see, this is why this push thing has overwhelmed us, because you allow children to eat and drink at younger age. You see? So if they start drinking at a young age, then they feel that they can smoke also. You see? And that is why the youngsters now, they are getting more and more lawless, because they've been used earlier on to get away with what they see older people are doing. You see? I mean, it is known, perhaps it's lost, eroded. People used to, from Nigeria and Gold Coast, send their children to Sierra Leone, to Freetown, so that they will get a Freetown training. You see?
And do you think that is all
Yes.
gone now? That's lost now?
It doesn't. No.
Do you think we have the same regard and respect for elders
Yes.
that used to exist before? I mean, the reason why I do this interview with you, the reason I'm having this conversation is to hear from someone who is elderly, person we don't exist in a salon through so many transitions and don't see the country go through so many different phases.
Yes.
And there's a lot of wisdom. There's a lot we can learn from listening to people who are older than us, people who are elderly. Do you think the young people of today are interested?
Well, I hope they are. It's not just listening, it's trying to see how you can imbibe it. If it gets into you and becomes almost second nature, automatically you will do so.
Right. Throughout the history of Sierra Leone to today, what lessons from the past do you think should guide today's leaders? What lessons can help us build a more cohesive society?
Antoinette, that's a difficult question for the leaders. The leaders, not only in Sierra Leone, but I mean, as we can gather from what is happening in other countries, and it's not peculiar to Africa, but it is more so in Africa that our leaders are not conscious of their responsibility to the ordinary man. To the ordinary man. They feel that when they're there, nobody but themselves. You see? So that is more so in African territories than in other nations.
When you talk about the leader, their responsibility to the ordinary people, waiting now, we own responsibility as ordinary people. Waiting now, we own responsibility to the country, to we self.
But do we have the opportunity to do more for the leaders? No, we don't. Our ordinary people don't have their
They're in a
suffering.
position, yes. But by that, what I mean is, in the day we, as citizens, now we own responsibility for do that. So waiting now we own responsibility for make sure say salon go the right direction, we able for create a cohesive society, we able for create a safe society and left salon in a way where we own picking and tomorrow self go benefit from.
This money comes back, it's not from the bottom, it's from the top. Obeying law and order. If the law is there and it is enforced, it becomes second nature to the ordinary man. You have traffic laws. Tony, you have roads that are supposed, or pathways that are supposed to be one-way traffic. And yet still you have this Waka-Fine bus and vehicles, government vehicles, being allowed to use the one way, the other way. Well, if they do that, the ordinary man says, why shouldn't I? You see, it's the poor people will conform if they see that the leadership is conforming.
That's a good one. If you get one message for Guy, all man where they listen, every Sierra Leonean, every age, waiting at the message where you go on for left with people there where they listen.
Well, love your neighbor as yourself. And when it means love, it's as Jesus said, do to others as you would like them to do to you. And that is taxing to individuals, taxing. But if you do to others, if you are in trouble, you want people to help you. So if somebody else is in trouble and you can help, please help.
Thank you so much for making the time and for being on the program, for coming on the podcast. Thank you so much for your time, Ms. Garber.
Thank you. So it's my duty. As I say, it's a blessing. God has kept me. And I think it is a duty to do what I can to help in whatever way. Almost 98. What I can't help it. The number of my students I meet, of course, many are in positions of influence, and they've done so well. I feel so proud when I see some of them and the positions and their comportment. Their comportment has made me feel well. Although Mrs. Kabaya both have mercy, but they themselves are saying it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
That's it for today's episode of Honestly Speaking. Thank you for listening and being a part of these important conversations. If you've enjoyed today's discussion, please like and share. And if you're feeling inspired, do leave a review. I'd love to hear what you think. And of course, carry on the conversation online. Share your thoughts, experiences, and ideas using #HonestlySpeakingSL. Until next time, stay curious, stay engaged, and stay honest.